BMO ETFs have partnered with investors for over a decade.
Hello, welcome to Strictly Money at the News Forum, where all voices matter. I'm your host, Sejal Patel. It was only a few years ago that cryptocurrencies were dismissed as a speculative fad, but it feels very different today. There are now thousands of cryptocurrencies. The first crypto exchange-traded fund was, in fact, launched here in Canada. And Google just released the world's most searched terms in 2021. Ether and Dogecoin made the list. Kareem Sadek is a partner and lead of KPMG's Crypto and Blockchain Advisory Group, and he joins me now with his take on the growing popularity of cryptos and trends to watch for. Hi, Kareem. It's great to have you on.
Hi, Sejal. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be with you today.
All right. Well, I remember when Bitcoin first came out in 2009, and I was a business journalist, and I was intrigued, but I didn't really pay a lot of attention because I felt like, there was a lot of reasons that we don't take it seriously, but it's very different now. And I was telling someone, it's something's changed when mainstream media is covering it every single day. What's driven this rise in its popularity? And maybe we can start with Bitcoin because it's been the one that's around the longest and more well-known.
Yeah, for sure. So what's driving it? Bitcoin in general, it's, think about it as the founding father when it comes to crypto and all of that and what's happening in this space. There are around, just to give you an idea, order of magnitude, you're talking around maybe 5,000 different crypto tokens that are out there right now.
Wow.
There's a lot out there, but Bitcoin still sort of reigns supreme when you look at market cap and all of that. In terms of why is this really happening? And you're right. When Bitcoin first came out, nobody really paid attention. I'll be very honest. I was approached by friends at the time, and I had a hard time understanding it, but I've been involved with it, thankfully, for a long time, and I'm very bullish about it. Why is this happening? I'll be very honest with you. It's the changing demographics of the investor. You're getting younger investors that are coming in looking for different asset classes, different types of investments. And quite frankly, we can talk volatility for a second, but it's also the return that you can get when you're engaging in the crypto space. And the most thing that you're going to see more and more traction is primarily the institutional investment. You're hearing a lot of large organizations that are coming into the space, talking Bitcoin and other cryptos. But once you start seeing that institutional investment, that drives a lot of the adoption. And I truly believe that.
Yeah, and I thought that was actually very interesting, knowing that it was getting the backing of some of these well-known companies like Tesla, because to me, when the board of directors who oversee governance are accepting this, I think that sends a strong signal, does it not?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of it, if you think about Bitcoin, and it's a little bit different than others. Bitcoin has rather than a method of payment, you can argue when you can talk both ways whether it's a good way to transact. But I think it's definitely understood, and everybody thinks that the idea around Bitcoin as a store of value or hedging around something like inflation and all of that. That's why a lot of the organizations are starting to get involved. So it's very intriguing, and I think it's just going to continue to drive adoption. So that's great for the ecosystem, quite frankly.
Kareem, there's a lot of divide, though, right? Naysayers are saying this is all driven by hype. It's not backed by anything fundamental. And then you have the yay-sayers that are saying, it is a digital currency. It's not controlled by the central banks. That's a good thing. Every transaction is recorded. There's valid arguments on both sides, no?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of it, if you think maybe less on the retail side, organizational, you hear about the environmental aspects of it. But that's driven by the old way of how transactions are recorded on the blockchain, something called proof of work, which is essentially computational power. So you're using a lot of electricity and computational power. What you're seeing a good shift, even in Ethereum 2.0 and other protocols and platforms, is the shift to proof of stake, where you're essentially taking your crypto, your asset itself, to provide consensus. And that basically eliminates the whole aspect of that environmental power or the ESG aspects of it. So that's one side of it. But I think they're valid points. I think over time, when you look at market caps, I think crypto's it's here to stay, to be very honest with you.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we'll run through how some of these popular cryptocurrencies work. Welcome back. Kareem, before the break, we were talking about the naysayers versus the yaysayers when it comes to crypto. When it comes to Bitcoin, can you explain to viewers how it works and then how blockchain fits in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Bitcoin is essentially, it's a digital currency. It operates free of any central control. So that's what a lot of people hear. And it relies on sort of a peer-to-peer cryptography just to record things on the blockchain. So basically the way it operates, it's a public ledger, records all Bitcoin transactions, and there are copies of that single source of that public ledger that are distributed across thousands of nodes, what's called nodes in Bitcoin as it relates to Bitcoin. And what it is essentially servers. And what that does, it removes the central aspect of it. And what that means is whenever there's a transaction that's been sent to the blockchain, that transaction is sent across all of these various nodes. Again, they're not necessarily people, they're servers, like we said, computational power. And they actually confirm that transaction. And it usually takes around 10 minutes to create what is called a block, hence the blockchain. And then it's recorded, and that's the immutability aspect of blockchain, where it gets recorded into the blockchain itself. So again, it's decentralized, and you have that consensus of thousands of what you typically call nodes or miners that are out there that are providing the consensus to that transaction.
So how does one get their hands on Bitcoin, right? Because they talk about mining it. I would have to think you get it by accepting it as some form of payment, and now investing has become really popular. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that you think of it of different ways. So there's the miners who are, I mean, the reason why they do that, and anybody can become a miner as long as you have the computational power to provide your probably servers or more than that to actually provide consensus. So you can become a miner, and you're typically incentivized. So if you actually confirm a transaction, you're rewarded in Bitcoin. So that's hence the appeal to it. But as a retail investor, like somebody like myself or others that are out there, it's really very simple. I think it's the easiest way right now. We're very lucky in Canada. We have a very favorable regulatory, I guess, environment. So we have ETFs. So if you're interested, there are Bitcoin ETFs. So you can get them through your TFSA or otherwise. Or you can actually engage with many exchanges. There are many crypto exchanges that are out there, some Canadian, some in the US, and some international. So if you want to interact directly with crypto, you can do that too. I think it just varies of the level of comfort that you have.
Is it still seen, Kareem, as a store of value the way like fiat currency is? Because you hear a lot more about it being an inflation hedge. Are you seeing evidence of that?
I certainly, so again, it's driven by scarcity. If we talk Bitcoin specifically, like let's talk Bitcoin for a second. It's driven by scarcity. 21 million Bitcoin that are ever going to be in circulation. That's the reality of it. So once you drive scarcity, that drives a little bit of the demand around it. And it is a store of value. I like to think of it, if you think about, let's pick the two biggest cryptos that are out there. So the Ether and Bitcoin. Yeah. So Bitcoin, if you think about it, it's like gold. It's the store of value, like an asset that you can use it as a store of value like gold. Maybe Ethereum would be something more like, I don't know, copper or silver that has more utility to it.
Okay.
That's how it differentiated. But definitely Bitcoin, I see it personally as a very, very good store of value.
Yeah, so what is Ethereum? Like, how does it work? Because it's also a digital currency. It's also decentralized, but it does have some key differences compared to Bitcoin.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Ethereum, again, second biggest cryptocurrency that's out there. Ethereum has more utility, and I mentioned that. And that's primarily because of the way that Ethereum has evolved. So it still uses the same, it's still a public blockchain. It's still the same thing, similar to Bitcoin. It still has currently leveraging the same way of consensus, which is that proof of work, the computational power. But the great thing about Ethereum, as it's evolving into Ethereum 2.0, which is probably going to come into effect somewhere in the next year, is that proof of stake. With that becomes, the environmental aspects that we talked about it, but it also makes it a lot faster in terms of how do you actually transact within that protocol, within Ethereum. And on top of that, there are multiple different projects that are built on the Ethereum network, and hence the utility of it.
All right.
And that's the differentiation.
BMO ETFs have partnered with investors for over a decade.
Welcome back. I'm here with Kareem Sadek of KPMG. Kareem, there's literally thousands of crypto assets, as you mentioned, right? Something like 5,000. Is there a way to lump them? Is there a way to kind of distinguish how they're correlated, or are they all just completely different?
Definitely there is a way. So you're going to hear, and we're going to get into the details, but if you want to look into it, there are the typical layer ones, the typical, the Ethereums, the Cardanos, the Avalanche, where you build actual utility on those platforms. And then you have things that are, you hear a lot about stable coins, so which is tagged to some form of an asset, Tether being the biggest one as it relates to the US dollar. But then there are many different other ones related to things that are tied to gaming, the gaming industry, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. So you're starting to see definitely correlation between the different types of crypto or tokens that are out there, for sure.
Okay. Let's switch gears and talk about regulation, because we just saw some of the US executives testify in front of Congress about how the crypto space should be policed. And, oversight is still in early stages. Governments acknowledge it, but they haven't completely backed it. Do you have a sense of what they're thinking?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, that was great. I don't know if I've spent a considerable amount of time watching this yesterday, and I was actually very intrigued. It's similar to what I was saying. It's great to see the regulators starting to think about this. And I think the questions were asked very, very reasonable questions, good answers. I think if you think about it, stable coins are the easiest ones because there's a lot of applicability when it comes to cross-border payment and all of that. What I think is going to continue to happen, we're seeing a little bit in terms of regulations that are basically helping the investors or protecting the investors. And I think that's a great thing. But then you're also seeing things from FinTrack, FATCA, and others related to AML, making sure that if you're going to be transacting with any of these crypto, where is it coming from, where is it going, and all of that. So I think you're going to see more and more around that as it relates to protection of the investors, but then you're going to see even more build up as it relates to stable coins. I think you've heard it yesterday, and I think you're going to hear a lot more regulations as it comes to that.
And also protecting the financial system, is that something they're worried about? Because look, it's always been predicated on fiat currency, and now they're dealing with, volumes. I mean, people can't even keep up with all the development in the crypto space.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd say, again, this is purely my personal opinion. It has to be balanced, right? Like in terms of regulation, yeah, of course. I think there's nobody that to talk to in the space, a lot of the CEOs, executives, and the crypto native companies that are against regulation in any shape, way, or manner. They're actually for that regulation. I think it's just making sure that the regulation or the regulatory body that's going to be responsible for that does not stifle the innovation that we've seen in the DeFi space and otherwise. So I think we have to be very careful in terms of how we approach it, but I think everybody is pro-regulation to help the investor, but also the financial system.
Yeah. What do you think their biggest challenge for them is, and how coordinated do they have to be with other markets in other countries?
So here's again my personal thoughts around that. So I think what the struggle is that the level of disruption that's happened in this space and innovation has been exponential. And the regulators are sort of playing a little bit of catch up, and that's okay. But I think for it to actually be successful, it's probably there has to be a good balance where you see governments, regulators start engaging with these crypto native companies. And they need to start engaging with the private sector to come up with the regulations rather than it trying to be siloed and being pushed towards these various crypto native companies and the ecosystem of the digital assets in general. I think there has to be massive collaboration to make this successful.
I think what's fascinating too, like you said, the ecosystem that this has created, right? Like you have a number of exchanges now there, and you talked about ETFs as well.
Yeah, I'm so proud of being in Canada. When we launched the ETFs, first in the world. I mean, we've evolved from a great regulatory, favorable environment when it comes to crypto in terms of ETFs. So we have the Bitcoin ETFs, we have the Ethereum ETFs, and recently now we have a metaverse ETF too. So I think there's a lot more to come. And I think it's just a very exciting space to be in.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I want to get your thoughts on some of those trends, including that metaverse. Welcome back. Kareem, what are you watching for in terms of trends over the next couple of years? And what excites you? What worries you as this crypto space evolves?
Well, here, personally, I'll tell you, I'm very excited to see the different utility in the crypto space. I love that now when you're starting to think about where do you invest in as it relates to all of these different cryptocurrencies or tokens or any of that, it's become more like projects. You need to spend time researching, see whether you actually support that project. But I think some of the trends that you're going to see more and more of is, certainly things around you're hearing a lot around NFTs. I'm very excited see how that evolves. Because currently we're just seeing a lot around as it relates to NFTs related to
the non-fungible tokens.
Non-fungible tokens as it relates to art. But there's a lot of applicability to it, whether it be music, whether it be tickets, anything. There's so many utility for non-fungible tokens. So excited to see that space. The metaverse, certainly you've heard a lot about that. You're hearing about countries setting up embassies in the metaverse and people buying digital real estate. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to evolve. I mean, retailers are setting up headquarters in the metaverse. So it sounds very weird, but I'm very excited to see where that goes. So there are many, many trends to see coming. And certainly the DeFi space, decentralized finance, and how that's going to evolve and how or if and when that's going to be regulated. That's definitely a lot of things that I'm looking forward to.
What do your clients want to know? What's on their mind?
I think unanimously, everybody that you talk to are going to they're asking us the same thing. Our clients are asking, how do we engage with our clients, our customers? What are the risks that we should be thinking of? And to that, we always say, if I were to summarize it, there are three things that you should always think about as you're engaging in this space and providing access to your customers is proof of reserves, meaning how do you ensure that whatever is on your books is actually on the blockchain and vice versa? How do you do that? AML considerations, anti-money laundering, we talked a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And certainly custody. The most important thing when it comes to crypto is custody. Who's going to hold your private keys? How are you going to secure them? And are you going to build something yourself, or are you going to sub-custody somebody else? And that key life cycle management around it is very important. So custody, AML, proof of reserves, definitely.
Do you think financial education plays a huge role? And because it's still, even for me, it's just so complicated. I try to get my head around it and I still can't.
Yeah. I always find, even as we continue to build our big practice in crypto and blockchain here at KPMG, one of the things that's very interesting to me, I always say when we're trying to recruit people, they're like unicorns because it's not very traditional to go to university and find somebody that's studying crypto or something. It's a lot of financial education, time spent on your own, researching, learning more about the different utilities, layer 1s, 2s, and 3s as it relates to crypto. and then various utilities all within that space, and then blockchain in general. So definitely financial education, spend a lot of time, research, and it's a very exciting space.
Yeah. We only have about 45 seconds left until the end of the show. What do you think it's going to take to make this be accepted as mainstream? Is it government stamp of approval? Is it more stability? What do you think it is?
Stability, definitely, but that comes because of something else. So continued adoption from institutions, one thing. As you see more and more being adopted, that's going to create stability and less on the volatility side of things. But to be very honest, and I mentioned that in the previous segment, it's very, very, very important collaboration between the private sector, crypto native companies, governments, and regulators, not in silos. And I think if that happens, we're going to get to a very, very good place as it relates to it.
All right, Kareem, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
That was Kareem Sadek, lead of the Crypto and Bitcoin Advisory Group at KPMG. Well, that wraps up this edition of Strictly Money. You heard Kareem share his insights on the trends he sees in the crypto space. If I can leave you with this message, it's that we can get swept up in the noise, hype, and even fear. If you're going to invest in crypto, you owe it to yourself to do your homework. Understand how it works, what drives its price, both up and down, and be honest with yourself about how it aligns to your risk tolerance and how it fits into your portfolio. If you have any questions, feedback, drop me a line. Until then, stay well, stay wise, and stay wealthy. Thanks for watching.